the euphoric feeling and the oneness that you feel through some of these psychedelics can also be cultivated through yoga, like Kundalini yoga specifically, regular yoga, breath work.
Mhm.
These things are gateways to that same to a similar state of expansiveness in the mind.
I'd like to welcome a very special guest to the show today. Tyson DelaCruz is a real estate investor and also the co-founder of the Kiaya Wellness Clinic. Welcome, Tyson. Welcome to the show today.
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. First off, this is super cool. I love what you're doing. As soon as you messaged me, I was like, yeah, I'm on board. So thank you.
Yeah, I love how that unfolded too. For the listeners, I met Tyson when I was in my corporate role working for a real estate software company. And what happened was I saw some posts on Tyson's page from Eckhart Tolle and for his wellness center. And I just thought, I need to talk to you about all of it, all of the above. So here we are. I'm so excited to get into this today with you. First of all, let's talk about your journey. You're still doing real estate, correct? Okay.
Yeah. Still active in real estate.
Awesome. And then you've added the wellness center. So I'm curious about how long you've been doing real estate and how like your journey led you to the wellness center.
Great question. So I've been doing real estate since 2012. I got into REOs as a traditional agent and then started flipping properties in 2015, got into wholesaling like 2017, 16, something around there, actively wholesaled and flipped, still to this day, just not to the scale that we were doing it because we were doing it across the country in St. Louis, Chicago, LA, Arizona, and um, through I'm gonna try to blend these two stories together.
Yeah.
So through I originally got into real estate, and when I first flipped my first property, my grandfather who had passed away had gifted my grandmother a life insurance policy. She gifted me some of the monies for that, which ultimately led me to pick up my first property sub 2 in like 2015.
Mhm.
But through my grandfather's passing, I was navigating through emotions that I haven't experienced before, depression, anxiety, all these things, and that led me down kind of like a hole uh, of taking some prescription pills and drinking, and then I discovered meditation, and as I discovered meditation and Eckhart Tolle, my business was kind of growing. The business, the spirituality and the business were growing simultaneously. They were feeding each other energetically. And through this process of self-discovery, my business got better. And as we grew in 2019, I got this universal calling, God, from whatever name relates to the viewer. For me, it's God. I got this intuitive hit to tell me to slow down. We were doing a lot of business. I had like 17 plus employees. In 2019, I got this hit. It said, slow down. I told my assistant, hey, for some reason, it's super strong. We got to slow down. And I we slowed down. I went to the Amazon jungle for about a month. I came back and I shut everything down. I'm glad that I did, because a month later, COVID happened. And, I'm glad that happened, and it allowed me to reset my real estate business, kind of focus more on rentals, focus more on holds. Prior to me leaving to Peru, I had opened up my first kind of sober living, transitional living facility.
Mhm.
And that's what really sparked the interest to ultimately help people.
Yeah.
My One of my visions was to open up a private detox facility, and through just the sober living, I saw the medical services that these people were getting provided, and I'm like, man, we could do this way better with alternative treatment.
Yeah.
And that ultimately led me to uh, getting licensed to open up like a fully licensed clinic out here in Las Vegas, where we focus on alternative and holistic treatment to treat anxiety, depression, PTSD, chronic pain,
Mhm.
through a lot of different modalities like Reiki, sound, light therapy, lymphatic massage, traditional talk therapy. But one
Mhm.
of our main focuses is clinical psychedelic psychotherapy.
Mhm.
And yeah, just along that brief-winded journey that I just guided you guys through, I started like my plant medicine journey in 2016.
Uh-huh.
I think I sat with ayahuasca in 2016, and and Bufo a little bit before that, which is 5-MeO DMT, and that just really kind of expanded my consciousness, showed me what's really important,
Yeah.
allowed me to kind of break egoic walls, because I just came out of this like really dark, tarry time,
Mhm.
and I just want to share that with people.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. I want to pinpoint a few things that really stood out to me. And I might mess up your words, but I want to go
Yeah.
back a little ways to where you said that you were into the spiritual practices. You had Eckhart Tolle, meditation, things were being introduced, and your business was doing well. I'm curious, do you think those were related? And if so, why?
Yeah, 100%. 100% those are related, because the I'm a firm believer of the frequency in which we attune ourselves to.
Uh-huh.
Um, the energy that we expend from our like human suits, right?
Mhm.
Um, is the energy that we ultimately receive. So, in those moments of my life, thinking back, I was vibrating in such like a super dope flow state,
Mhm.
and I was so in line with like, bettering me, and just through bettering me, you know, business just started flowing, almost very effortlessly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. I hope that answered your question there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason I ask is I'm a life coach and I work with a lot of people. I have for a long time. And even some of my current clients will tell me, I don't have time to focus on my spirituality because of my business or my work. And when I heard you say that, I just wanted to highlight it because I think there's a quote that says, if you think you don't have any time to meditate, you need to meditate. so, so thank you so much for elaborating on that. It's always about our self journey and self development, and from the inside, I believe everything emanates outward. Now, I'm curious. You had mentioned in part of your journey that you were feeling really dark. You were in a dark space, and you had turned to like some prescription pills and alcohol. Were those prescribed to you, or was that just your way of self-medicating?
That was my way of self-medicating. I think I think I bought them from some friend, and
Mhm.
yeah, it was because I'm really conscious in regards to like alcohol consumption. So I said,
Mhm.
well, what's the fastest way to get jacked up without drinking a lot of alcohol? Oh, I take prescription pills.
Right.
Great. you know
yeah.
then I would just self-loathe and all of that.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it was extremely they were extremely dark times. Like there would be times that, man, I wouldn't eat, or I wouldn't change clothes for a long time, and just stay in one spot, and be very like, uh why me kind of situation, yeah, it was gnarly.
Yeah. Being a recovered addict, I 100% relate to everything you just said. Are you sober? You mentioned sober living. Are you sober now?
So I I do consume psychedelics. I do consume some cannabis. I do drink. Um, I think at least for my vision in regards of sobriety, specifically individuals looking, to get off. Ultimately, it's really kind of discovering uh, that underlying trauma
Uh-huh.
and figuring out why an individual is using something as an escape mechanism
Yeah.
for the actual reality. And I feel that if once an individual understands that, um, I feel as long as they understand their own triggers,
Mhm.
uh, they can consume whatever, and that includes, there's sugar addicts, there's eating addicts, there's alcohol addicts, there's drug addicts, there's sex addicts, all these things,
Yeah.
you know, all these things are addictions. And
Mhm.
once we kind of figure out what these traumas are and triggers, either we have the willpower to completely eliminate ourselves from these traumas and addictions, or we can consume them, but from an understanding of a different perspective. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, I share your view. And there's a couple of threads that I want to go down. But first, I just want to highlight that I love the direction this conversation is going because of how being in the program of AA, being around recovery for over 10 years now, and being recovered from multiple addictions. I had an eating disorder, went to treatment in 2008. And one of the things that is a kind of collective way of thinking around these programs are that everything is off limits. And what I love about what you just said is it invites a new way of thinking. And the way I see addiction is that we're just trying to fill a God-sized hole. So once we really get in touch with the emptiness that we experience in ourselves and heal our trauma, there's a whole world of things that are available to us as far as healing, such as psychedelics. And I have read and seen many videos about ayahuasca actually being a catalyst to many people finding their path to recovery. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
As soon as you said it, I got the chills because I've sat in several plant ceremonies, ayahuasca, psilocybin, and I've also experienced individuals like kind of detoxing at the same time, getting off, or traditionally through an ayahuasca ceremony, there's something called a dieta, which is like a cleansing of the body, mind, body, spirit, where there's specific, you're not consuming fried food, salt, you're mainly eating unprocessed food without salt, and mainly fish, and no sex, no other drugs. And if I've experienced individuals that have done short dietas prior to a plant ceremony, and they, after getting out of that ceremony, like they are no longer addicted to cigarettes or no longer addicted to drugs, just because the experience itself is very healing.
Mhm.
There is a beautiful psychedelic, specifically for individuals that are in the middle of detox, and that particular psychedelic works very well for individuals like looking that are active users that are looking to use the psychedelic as a detox.
Mhm. Is that
um
ayahuasca, that psychedelic, or are you referring
that
to another one?
I would say ayahuasca would be up there, but ibogaine, which is
Okay.
the from an African plant, from the iboga plant.
Mhm.
It's, if anybody has sat in an ayahuasca ceremony, any of your viewers or ayahuasca is very like motherly, grandmotherly, and that type of energy, where
Mhm.
like an ibogaine would be very like disciplinary, fatherly, grandfatherly.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. So the energy, it sounds like there's a little bit of a distinction between like some feminine energy and some masculine energy. So some nurturing or like, here you go.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Um, and so for listeners who might not be familiar with ayahuasca, can you give us a little bit about what a journey is like? I understand that I've never done one myself. I do understand that they are to be guided, usually with a shaman or someone who has a lot of experience. Can you tell us about ayahuasca?
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, I want to preface this like, this is not like specific prescription advice by any means or
Right,
anything like
right.
that. But this is just solely, I want to preface this because this is totally based on my experiences, and I don't want, anybody to misconstrue anything, because
Yes.
something, I might say something, but I just want to preface that.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely. And I just want to say, to piggyback off of this, the intention of this podcast is to have conversations that inspire something, hope or anything inside the listener that can help them expand and return to the truth of who they are and what our normal state, what I believe our normal state is, happy, joyous, and free. So thank you for that. And now I'll let you have it back.
Thanks. Yeah, you said happy, joyous, and free, and that's one of the vibrations that ultimately, like I've personally vibrated out of coming out of an ayahuasca ceremony. It's very freeing, it's very opening, it's very gratifying. You generally don't take things too much for granted.
Mhm,
You asked about how a journey is, and yes, I would highly recommend anybody that's uh thinking about using psychedelics, use them with the sacredness of what they were originally intended for, and
mhm,
do have guidance from either a shaman or a clinical professional. Um, Ayahuasca is a very it's a brew, it's a tea that they use. They cut this root from the Amazon and they mix it with uh, two other leaves, and they brew it, and it makes this tea. And what that tea does, it stimulates this disassociative kind of psychedelic journey, where I've gotten opportunities to like disconnect from the things that I was doing in my life, uh, to view them from a third person, like a third person point of view. And there's a lot of intentionality through the process of sitting with ayahuasca, and through that you experience uh pain, you experience some prior traumas that we tend, as humans, we tend to pack all of our traumas from when we were little in these little bags or pouches and fanny packs and backpacks of like people calling us names or people hurting us, or us seeing things in different perspectives, and we pack all these things in these backpacks and we carry them around throughout our life. And what ayahuasca generally does, it says, hey, like, let me take these backpacks off.
mhm,
And then they pour the backpacks in front of you and they say, oh, see all this stuff here, see this thing when you thought that, or when this happened with your ex, or this thing happened with your grandfather or your dog or your kid, like, see what happened there. And then you get to see, like, from that perspective, the reason why a lot of our some of our traumas come up like that is because we only had the tools and resources that we had at that moment to deal with that situation.
mhm,
And ayahuasca kind of allows us to see things from a different perspective and give grace and gratitude for those moments, because those moments ultimately cultivated and molded us into who we are sitting there in ceremony.
Mhm.
And, you know, through that, we get to heal. And then it takes that little thing that you worked on, or there's several things that you worked on, and it throws them into the cosmos.
Yeah.
And not to say that that stuff's not going to come up anymore. It
Mhm.
will, but not to the magnitude that it, you know, it once did.
Yeah. I love how you said that. It just like throws them to the cosmos. And so, like, what I make up about that, just the way you said that too, like those things aren't going to come up anymore, or they will, but just not as intensely. It's like taking the little items out of the backpacks, tossing it out so that you can expand your perspective and maybe see other perspectives along the way while you're in the journey, so that you're not just in that limited view, which created the trauma to begin with. Would that be
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. You know, they often relate like an ayahuasca ceremony to like 10 years of therapy,
Yeah.
you know, and uh yeah, it is a journey.
Yeah.
It is definitely a journey.
Yeah. Now I'm curious, is that one of the psychedelics that someone can get treatment for at the wellness center?
So currently, no.
Okay.
One of our psychedelics that we offer here currently,
Mhm.
because the approval is ketamine.
Got it.
Not to say it's limited to that, but
Mhm.
currently we're administering ketamine and then adding assisted psychotherapy in there.
Got it. Very cool. I wanted to ask because I haven't been keeping up on it, but I know that ayahuasca is very well known in like Costa Rica, Peru, and very lush jungle spaces. And so I wasn't too aware of it being here in the United States. But let's talk about. So I'm really curious. I've heard a little bit about ketamine before I got sober. I dabbled in it, not in any clinical way. So I'm really curious about what is ketamine? What are the benefits of a ketamine treatment?
Great. So originally, you know, like you just said, ketamine was originally synthesized in the 1960s. Ketamine's been around in the medical field for decades.
Mhm.
In the medical field, they traditionally use it as an anesthetic,
Mhm.
uh, in regards to its ability to be controlled, um, in a sedated setting. And it has been proven to work with elderly people, people with other types of, you know, special conditions,
Mhm.
kids, um, for operating procedures or like heavy traumatic events.
Mhm.
And, you know, it has been known as a party drug, right?
Mhm.
Um, Prior to that, they were doing heavy studies with ketamine and its effects on the brain and neuroplasticity.
Mhm.
And you know, now what we use here at the clinic is ketamine for its off-label purposes, right? So currently, ketamine is FDA approved for on-label for sedation, but we use it off-label uh, in small dosages based on weight to provide a psychedelic experience that lasts about 90 minutes.
Mhm.
And we couple that with psychotherapy, which is an individual kind of helping them guide through a shaman. You know,
Yeah.
one of our nurses is, you know, she's very deep in the indigenous culture, and she is assisted psychedelic assisted uh psychotherapy certified. So
Mhm.
it's you know, it's a modern day medical shaman. um so when it comes to the administration of ketamine, we administer it via IM, which is intermuscularly.
Mhm.
So the onset is like very quick, you know, a couple minutes,
Mhm.
and then they can actually start their kind of psychedelic journey.
Got it.
Um, yeah.
And like, why would someone choose to be treated with ketamine? Like what kind of ailments would they have? Would it be psychological, physical, maybe a combination of both?
Yeah, it can definitely be a combination of both, right? Like ultimately, right, if traditional like talk therapy isn't working,
Mhm,
whether an individual is experiencing high energies or emotions of anxiety, depression, PTSD, chronic pain,
mhm,
postpartum, or just, ultimately looking to gain more clarity,
mhm.
to create more bioavailability, right?
Yeah.
Um, because, when we have more bioavailability, like when our neurons are all firing and, we have great connective tissue in our brain, we tend to be happier, healthier, and we
Mhm,
tend to make more money and, be more in line with everybody else in life. So, those are general kind of ailments, right? You don't necessarily have to be like super low uh, on the energy frequency, um, but it it does it does help those individuals that are severely low, and
mhm.
um, I definitely wouldn't recommend it for individuals as a detox, but I would couple it with a detox.
Got it.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to explore. I know we talked about it a little bit in the recovery communities, at least the ones that I've been a part of. There's a lot of fear around some of these, modalities that include substances that might alter your mind. I'm curious your thoughts on, someone who, like me, who going to celebrate 10 years in December.
Congratulations.
Thank you. How would you handle someone in recovery coming and inquiring about some of these psychedelic modalities?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's ultimately going to be like up to the individual, right? Like,
Mhm,
if they feel that, this is something that they can do, great. I'm going to relate it to a story with brownies, right?
mhm.
If my family makes brownies
Yeah,
and there's brownies on top of the oven and I have one brownie, uh, I will have six more
yeah,
by three,
right,
by 3 o'clock, I'll have six more brownies or I'll eat the whole tray. So
right.
for me, I don't even touch the brownie,
Yeah,
or I got to touch it and like destroy it, or somebody else has to eat it. So, that's just where I'm at with brownies, right?
yeah,
And I relate that with anybody detoxing, or anybody in that is actively in recovery or
mhm,
recovered, right, or
yeah,
recovering. um if they feel that, that if that story relates to them, then I wouldn't advise it, right?
yeah,
I would advise some alternate options, right? Alternative options, like
mhm,
the the uh the euphoric feeling and the oneness that you feel uh through some of these psychedelics can also be uh, cultivated through yoga, like Kundalini yoga specifically, regular yoga, breath work.
mhm.
Um, these things are gateways to that same, to a similar state of expansiveness in the mind.
Yeah. That brownie example was so perfect. I mean, I was bulimic and anorexic and an alcoholic. So I get that, once I have one, I can't stop and I won't, and I don't want to.
Right.
So I personally have not, since I've been sober, I have not explored any psychedelics. And I love where we're going with this conversation because it's a perfect segue into the other modalities that you offer at your clinic. I was going to share some like breath work. Breath work can bring you to that same space. So can meditation. Now, it can be hard to slow my mind down enough after so many years. I've gotten better at it. I really would love for you to talk about the other modalities that your clinic offers.
Yeah, great. Like, meditation is one of the tools that profoundly helped me
Mhm,
really just slow down and be more present, right?
mhm,
We do offer like integration circles, like after an individual, like, you know, part whatever type of therapy they decide to use. But, we offer Reiki, which Reiki is I would say like if those of you that aren't familiar, but like healing hands, right?
mhm.
Uh shifting energy, um aligning chakras, way more than that.
Yeah.
You could speak
I'm a
way
certified
better.
Reiki healer,
Yeah.
so I get
Yeah.
what you're saying.
And just in regards of reducing blood pressure, reducing
Mm,
anxiety, increasing sleep, getting clarity.
mm,
um it's great for Reiki, right? We
mm,
do some sound therapy, which it includes, we do have like digital sound therapy, which is headphones, and then also traditional sound therapy, like singing bowls, gong, other attuning instruments.
yeah.
They're all here. um Light therapy with like fluorescent like flash lights,
Hmm.
um, to alter the state of consciousness without substances.
Hmm.
Um, and then we also offer like traditional talk therapy. Um, and then we offer like mind mapping or brain spotting,
Hmm.
particularly after a psychedelic experience. Brain spotting is like moving your eyes in a specific direction uh, to discover where trauma is, and then using that to kind of alter that space.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
great, great after, clinical psychedelic
Uh-huh.
therapy,
Now,
because your
is
brain's more
that
palatable.
in any way, like when you said moving your eyes in a certain way, I immediately thought of EMDR. Is brain spotting related at all to
It's similar.
EMDR? Okay.
Yeah, it's similar. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then we have a great therapist that does adventure based therapy, like hiking, canoeing, bike riding, stuff like that. Just exploring different options for individuals, because it's not a one size fits all. Um, People react differently to different things,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah, we just want to provide as much. Uh, and we even dive into like nutrition supplements.
Hmm.
We have a few supplements here that are compounded, like with lion's mane, turkey tail, reishi, and it's like a small mushroom
Yeah.
blend to help reduce anxiety. It has a little ashwagandha in there.
Yeah.
Um, these all like, just saying, hey, I want to get rid of anxiety is great, but there's habits based around that's ultimately creating anxiety. So it's kind
Mhm.
of you know intertwining all these kind of lifestyle skills to be a better person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just to be happy, joyous, and free. I love that
There you
you
go.
mentioned the word right now, lifestyle, because as you were describing your modalities, I was like, that's my life. These therapies are so fun. And then it was like, I do them regularly and not in a therapeutic way, but because I mean, I used to. When I went to treatment, I went to a holistic center in Tucson and was opened up to Reiki, polarity therapy, meditation, yoga. And before that, I had no exposure. And now those are a way of life for me, like
Nice.
regularly. And so I loved how you mentioned lifestyle because I'm curious if you could dive into why do we experience anxiety? That would be
I
a
think.
loaded question, but like as we're talking about these modalities, right? Like what came up for me is that just because I listen to, some gong meditation or some Tibetan bowls, that might give me some relief in the moment. But the root cause
Yeah,
is,
it's
something else.
it is, like, and it's funny because when you say like, why do we get anxiety? Because I think we're the only species here that holds on to so much crap. You see two ducks fight or two dogs fight, and
Mhm.
then after they break up, they shake, they have their little mohawks, they shake and the mohawk's gone. And
Yeah.
that's forgotten, you know?
Right.
We're the only people that, or the only species that, something happens and then we hold on to it for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And, I think that's where some of that anxiety comes from. And then also, just in regards on a societal level, like how we're built in Western culture as a society is
Mhm.
very heavy consumption.
Yeah.
It's, very consumer based. It's very like keep up with the Joneses. It's very it's all of those things, right?
Mhm.
And I think for the most part, at least in my experience, some of my anxiety uh comes from that, right?
Mhm.
And it comes from like, not feeling good enough, right? Like not feeling worthy enough. Not,
Right.
oh, I'm more behind than what I thought I was supposed to be. Like all these
Yeah.
stories like
Mhm.
ultimately create this anxiety, right? Because
Yeah.
you're you're generally chasing something that is ultimately already here.
Right. Yeah.
And when
I
people
like how you
realize that, they're like,
said,
oh my gosh, I
yeah.
don't need. Yeah.
Yeah. I love how you said that. Chasing something that's already here.
Yeah.
That was pretty powerful for me. I know for me, when I was super anxious, I can still get very, very anxious.
Oh yeah.
um, and when I got into the program, when I first started in my journey of recovery 15 years ago with the eating disorder, I learned this thing that stuck with me that helped a little at first, but that anytime I'm experiencing anxiety, I'm future tripping. Like I'm tripping out over something that hasn't even happened yet.
Right.
And so, to circle all the way back to the post that I saw on your page with Eckhart Tolle, his work of presence really contributes to my healing from a lot of my anxiety. And just so
Yeah.
everyone knows, I was high anxious, like extremely anxious.
Yeah. And I love that you had brought up Eckhart Tolle because like, um, you're absolutely right. Like the anxiety feeling comes from like something in the future. And then generally like, we trip out over stuff that are scenarios that are 90% likely not to happen,
Right.
you know? And it's like all these stories. And then when the event actually happens, you're like, oh my gosh, why was I
Right.
so nervous this whole time? I was so freaking nervous. And then,
Right.
the depression is the reverse of that. Is it's thinking about things
Mhm.
that happened in the past that are no longer relevant. And,
Mhm.
I love Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle actually, I was introduced to the power of now. And that book like saved my life.
Mhm.
Because I was introduced to that book and it created this forceful presence for me. Presence meaning like being present for what's going on.
Mhm.
And after that, I just started diving into his work because he's a G, like I would love to hang out with him and
Mhm.
just to see if he's like that the whole time, you know, and I
Yeah.
would almost like try to mess with him, because like it reminds me of those like UK soldiers in front of
Right.
the castle with the hats. They don't laugh or anything. So I would
Yeah.
love to just see like Eckhart Tolle just laugh, or drive a
Right.
convertible and drink a beer, you know?
Right. I know. It amazes me. It isn't something I strive for, but I'm not where he is yet. But when I do watch his videos or see him presenting, he really does embody what
Oh
he writes about, what he teaches. And I don't know if I'll ever be at Eckhart's level, but I went to treatment in 2008, and it was the power of now that I was given in treatment and assigned. It wasn't my own desire. I was assigned to read it. And it really opened me up to a whole different world of actually getting to the cause of what was causing me to be anxious, because it was my anxiety and not wanting to feel that caused me to use substances or behaviors or things like that. Yeah, that's pretty powerful work for sure.
yeah, Eckhart's great. Yeah, anybody that that is listening, I actually got The Power of Now on audio. And
Mhm.
I was also like, somebody said, hey, get The Power of Now on audio and then listen to the last 15 minutes every day of the audiobook until it clicks.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's silly. But I was in a place and I was like, oh, I'll try it.
Right.
And man, because the last 15 minutes of that audiobook are super powerful. And
Mhm.
I still reference those to this day, because I
Yeah.
still like, things still come up, and
Mhm.
I get triggered, and I feel things, and I just reckon, my intention is just to recognize them sooner,
Yeah.
and you know see what works for me to get me out of a funk.
Yeah. Mhm.
There's there's moments that, you know maybe I want to feel the funk, right?
Mhm.
Isn't that a song?
I love that you said that. I tell my clients, look, I'm not attached to what you choose. Just wholly choose it. If you want to feel like that, just say, I want to feel like this. I use that with my
Yeah,
kids too.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we've been talking for a bit. I do have some signature questions that
Yeah.
I ask all my guests. The first question is, and I believe in the beginning or before we started recording, you did say that the word God resonates with you. So how would you define God?
um the first thing that comes to mind is like everywhere, everything, right? Like here, like us, me, you, the computer. um Everything is has its place. Like everything is comes from some thing, right? And we are it. Like the magic that somebody you see, like, and you're like, oh, I wish I could do that. You can, like we are all like one thing, and we all have individual lights that we emanate, and that emanation is a representation of like what we see today, like physically.
Mm.
um yeah, I think that's it is super loaded, but that's what I got right now.
I know. I think it's my favorite question to ask all of my guests. I get similarities and parallels, and then also unique perspectives. So, very, very cool. The second question is, what would you say is the purpose of life?
These are really good. The the I think ultimately the purpose of life, that's is to, explore like our own magic and gifts that we have, and being able to share that with whoever, however, to ultimately create the most fulfillment, joy, and love with ourselves and the people around us.
Hmm.
um, I can tell you what it's not about. It's not about like the consumerism and the materialism.
Right.
It's really solely about just connection, relationship, and
Mm.
experiences.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you for saying what it's not about.
Yeah.
That's sometimes really helpful. I just did an episode. I haven't posted it yet, but I just interviewed my old coach, and we talked about the top 5 regrets of the dying. And nowhere in there was all regrets about working too hard, not staying in touch with friends, not living the life that is in alignment with them. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great, like, there's a book, I believe, too.
Uh-huh.
Um, 5 Regrets of the Dying. Great.
Yep.
They and it sounds like you referenced that as well. And it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, they don't talk about working too much, right?
Right.
They don't talk about any of that, right?
Mhm.
They only talk about like not loving enough and
Yeah.
not being there enough with people.
Yeah. and not expressing their feelings. Or the last one is, I wish I would have let myself be happier.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's so powerful. So the final question is, if you could take one piece of wisdom that you have today and offer it to a younger version of yourself, what would that piece of wisdom be?
Love more. Um, uh, just come from a space of like deep gratitude and love. You know, the fear crap, like the pain stuff, like that dilutes time, as in this, like in these human suits, right?
Mhm.
um I spent a lot of time, in pain and fear, and I would share that with little Tyson, right? Is
Yeah,
just love and appreciate and gratitude, because we can't love and be fearful at the same time, you
yeah.
know
Mhm.
so as long as we're like radiating that peace, because when we're loving people, we're not hurting people. When we're loving ourselves, we're not hurting ourselves. We're not, over consuming. We're not, using substances as scapegoats. We're not, harming people or thinking these harmful thoughts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say you have nothing to lose when you choose love,
Mm,
like nothing. So
so
I
good.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Tyson, how do people get a hold of you? How do they find you if they want to enroll or sign up for your services? How do people do that?
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, so you can catch me on like all social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, at Tyson DelaCruz. You can see everything there. And, if anything sparked in regards of the clinic itself, you can check out KiayaWellness.com, which is KIAYA wellness.com. Um, and also on all social media platforms. And, there's links in bios and stuff like that. And people can
Mhm.
check out more information on everything.
Awesome. Do you guys do anything remote or is it all at the clinic?
Yeah, we do offer, remote, uh, like telehealth, like therapy sessions, also Reiki. Um, we can do remote, like sound.
Mhm.
It's a hit or miss depending on the
Yeah.
person's back end, but we can do remote talk therapy and Reiki.
Very cool. I'll be sure to include all of those in the show notes and the description. Tyson, this has been so much fun. Do you have anything else you want to add, to say before we close this conscious conversation?
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Like, this has been super wonderful. Like, I really appreciate like the reach out and just being able to share this information. And like, throughout this conversation, I got these goosebumps, and they're confirmation bumps, right? I call goosebumps confirmation bumps because, anytime like I feel in flow or in alignment or the conversation's clicking, I get the confirmation bumps.
Yeah,
And I got those throughout the series of this conversation. And I wanted to say thank you for, putting this on and providing this to everybody.
awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for putting your heart out there and for bringing your wisdom to the world, and for offering so many ways that people can return back to their natural state and return back to the truth of who they are. So, thank you again. And this was wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.